welcome to the UK Column Live. It's the 4th of December 2013 and it's just gone 1 o'clock. Myself, Louise Collins, Brian Gerrish and Mike Robinson are here in Plymouth in the UK on a bit of a cold and grey day. I've just done the weather, haven't I?
You have, you've given it away. It's cold and grey. It's, I'm going to say, very English and very Devon today, so it's a bit cold, grey, bit of blue, hinting to come through, but it hasn't yet. But well, the dog walkers they were reasonably happy this morning, so it must be okay. It's dry.
Good.
Well, there we go. But you're going to take us somewhere sunny for a break, for a bit of light relief. Let's go to Australia.
I'd hardly call it light relief. Australia, PaxVax Australia is about to be approved by the Office of Gene Technology for the international release of a GMO vaccine against cholera, consisting of a live bacteria which will be let out into the environment across Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia and Victoria. As soon as the trial is approved, it will be completed, and it will be completed within a year, where the Australian local government has chosen test areas for the live vaccine to be sprayed. This technology was approved by the Australian government's Office of Gene Technology, and PaxVax would get a DIR licence, which is dealings involving an international release of a GMO into the environment. So this is the documentation which explains who they need to contact and what they need to do to pass this licence. And as part of the DIR application evaluation, the regulators consult with apparently the public, all state and territory governments, relevant local councils, the Commonwealth Minister for the Environment and a Gene Technology Technical Advisory Committee. Well, having the public up there as number one, it's a bit... I can't see the public agreeing to having been poisoned from the air.
Provided they know it's going on,
well,
Louise.
This is it.
And I just looked at that and I thought it's almost as if we, the ordinary person, we've become a woolly aphid on a plant in a greenhouse, so we're going to spray the lot of you. It's pretty incredible, isn't it?
I had a look at the company who's going to be making this vaccine. They're an American-based company called PaxVax. And they do have a lot of sponsorship coming in from people like the Wellcome Trust and other large international countries. And,
well, we've also got the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I think, are in there somewhere.
It was rushed, this company was rushed to be started after the H5N1 pandemic. They decided to quickly set up this company and start rushing through vaccines, cholera, polio, and so Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are also heavily involved, as well as the Wellcome Trust. So it won't be long, I don't think.
The key bit is for people to spread the word, isn't it? This is being sort of done as an open secret. Once you start looking for the trail of evidence that it's there in front of you.
Yeah.
It's hidden in plain sight is the answer. So the moment you go looking for the evidence, you can actually see what's going on. They will continue to do it until enough of us, and that's in the hundreds of millions of people, start to say, well, sorry, we don't agree.
I mean, we know some things are being thrown out from the trails in the sky, but whether they're mass vaccinating us yet, I'm not sure. But Australia looking like there's a testing ground. I know that they did it back years ago, but I'm not sure if they're continuing doing it.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, for those of you who've got a smartphone, it will be of interest.
This,
is incredible.
There's a new app coming out that can start reading your mind and predicting people's thoughts and movements. This new app from Google now is what's known as a predictive analysis and uses technology to predict how users are going to behave on a daily basis. Combining location, diary entries and posts on social media, the app then predicts journeys, routes and reminders. It will also, if you're walking past a bus stop, automatically the bus timetable will come up and look at how many times you're passing that bus stop, say in a week, and it will give you the relevant times of bus passes. So predictive analytics, what are they? Apparently, according to Wikipedia, this is a company that deals heavily in them. And the predictive analytics encompasses a variety of techniques from statistics, modelling, machine learning and data mining, which I believe Sam the blogger has talked about on this show, the data mining, that analyse current historical facts to make predictions about future or otherwise unknown events.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly the same type of algorithm based technology that is used by many quantitative hedge funds to try to make predictions about what the markets are going to do based on what the markets have done in the past. We're seeing so many of these types of algorithms which have been built and tested on the financial markets being pushed into everyday life at the moment to try to predict our behaviour in every possible scenario. Yep. Really incredible.
We're also, of course, seeing it with just basic search information on Google. I think that what you go looking for is bias, acts as a bias for the future Google searches. So if you're getting very excited that you keep seeing, what you're interested in appearing high on your Google return, don't get too over the top with it, because basically this is Google using this predictive type stuff on you as an individual.
I did it the other day to look for a coat, and I found a coat on a website, and then every website I went to after, news sites, wherever, up would come that ad for that coat that I was looking at on every site, and it still does. It's still popping up, and that was a week ago.
Yeah, well, they've been using this for some time.
Yeah.
Just a humorous thought, if our smartphones are actually picking up what we're thinking, what we should all be doing is really thinking about the members of the government and what should happen to them. Presumably that all gets sucked through into Google. Just a thought. Well, here we are. Food poverty in the state of UK.
Yeah, top doctors have written to the BMJ sharing their concerns that the effects of the government's policies on vulnerable people' ability to feed themselves needed to be urgently looked into. Malnutrition has doubled, calorie intake has decreased, and the signs are showing a public health emergency. The group of doctors also slammed the delayed report from DEFRA, which is the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, on the food aid report, stating they want to know what was in it, we want to see the research. And what I found very interesting, I went and had a look on the DEFRA website, and Mike, Brian, if you can move the next slide. This morning is the page for DEFRA, and there is not one single mention of food poverty. It's talking about the badger cull from back in November, but there is nothing to talk about this delayed report that they are dithering about getting out on the effects of why people are suffering in this day and age in the 7th wealthiest country in the world, that we have got malnutrition kids. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. But can I just give a quote of what these doctors have said? They said, we want to see that research commissioned by the government, pulled together by a highly reputable academic, and we want to see what it says. We understand the reason it has not been published is the Department of Work and Pensions has queried aspects of the data in it and has been preventing its publication now for months. We think this is not acceptable, and apparently a government spokesman has said the coalition had helped families with the cost of living, increasing the tax-free personal allowance from 10,000 to 10,000, freezing council tax and freezing fuel duty. And a DEFRA spokesperson said that the food aid report would be published after a necessary review and quality assurance processes.
Well, what I was just going to add into that, I think I'm right in saying that it was DEFRA that was used as one of the key first initial departments to be using applied behavioural psychology. I think about 34 million was spent on it. So this department, the government said, right, let's get in and start training up. Leadership is what we're talking about, people in this department. And of course, let's remember that foot and mouth, which absolutely decimated British farming, all of roots within these sorts of departments. So do they care if people are not feeding themselves? I don't think they care at all, because that's part of removing the carbon footprint. But we will see. I think, Mike, you're going to take us into infrastructure now.
Yeah, so this is the National Infrastructure Plan for 2013, which was released today. Whoopie doo. That's good news, must be good news, because as I've been saying for a long time, if we don't have a decent economic infrastructure, we can't have a decent economy, so this must be good. Well, let's just have a look at a couple of things that it says in this report. It begins by saying that the quality of a nation's infrastructure is one of the foundations of its rate of growth and the living standards of its people. Good point. Successive governments, they say, have failed to invest sufficiently in UK's infrastructure. In making a long-term commitment to infrastructure investment, The government's ambition is to reverse the effects of this historic underinvestment and equip the UK with world-class infrastructure which rivals that of all its OECD, Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development partners, in every sector, and ensures the country can compete in the global race. Well, that sounds very good, but let's have a look. So perhaps then we must be investing in fusion energy, or perhaps we're investing in the Bristol Channel Barrage, or perhaps we're investing in Maglev, or perhaps we're investing in some decent water infrastructure. These are all things that the Chinese are doing, but clearly we must be doing these things in this infrastructure plan, no? Well, no, actually, what the government is doing this. So they've signed an agreement with Hitachi and Horizon to support the financing of the development of a new nuclear power station. So they're not actually financing it themselves, they're not investing in it themselves, they're merely supporting the financing of this through the private sector. They're providing £50 million for full redevelopment of the railway station at Gatwick Airport. Well, that's really important. They're confirming strike prices for renewable energy so that energy providers know how much they'll receive for energy generated in the future. They're taking forward steps to convert public sector car fleets to electric vehicles. Fantastic. They're funding improvements to the A50. Excellent. They're confirming that there'll be no tolls on the A14. Even better. And they're confirming a UK guarantee has now been agreed for the £1 billion Northern Line extension. So again, we're talking about a guarantee. We're not talking about any investment. So let's go on down through this list. Then they're announcing a £10 million guarantee, another guarantee for new energy efficient lighting systems across car parks in the UK. Fantastic.
That'll be intelligent lighting, I would guess. Yeah,
quite possibly. But this is major basic economic infrastructure that supports economies. No question of that. Create a new court for infrastructure to avoid unnecessary delays in planning processes. A £10 million competitive fund in early 2014 to test innovative solutions to deliver super fast broadband. So you can get the impression of the type of thing that we're talking about here. We're not talking about major infrastructure at all. We're talking actually about taking on more debt. But they do aim to make the UK a world centre for testing and development of driverless cars. That's fantastic. The news is just spectacularly good on this, isn't it? You could not beat it. Surely the driverless car, surely we should really be talking about trains here, no?
Well, yeah. Basically, you've put in a bit of sarcasm there. We'll make sure everybody's picked up on that. But if you analyse, is this really going to turn the UK round as a nation where our production capability has been decimated, shipbuilding, cars, engineering? We virtually gave railways to the world, and now apparently we can't even manage to run our own properly. So is this the programme for progress, or is it deliberately designed to just muddy the waters while things collapse?
Well, indeed. So Danny Alexander today, blowing his own trumpet, said this is great news for the people of the UK, because after years of neglect, the UK's energy, road, rail, flood defence, communications and water infrastructure needs renewal. It will boost the UK's economy, creating jobs and making it easier to do business. It will also make the UK a better place to live for everyone that calls it their home. Yeah, right. Okay, so let's just put this in a bit of perspective. £37.5 billion of so-called investment. Well, of course it isn't, but let's look at this. We're currently spending £140 billion servicing our pension obligations. As the average age of the population rises, that figure is going to increase. And of course the amount of money needed for the health service is also going to increase, currently £124.2 billion. This is for the fiscal year 2013. So these are bang up-to-date figures. And of course, as the population ages, then the burden on the health service is also going to increase. And the only way that story can change is if it's the government's intention to kill everyone over the age of 65. But perhaps that's another story. The fact of the matter is that if Britain is to compete against countries who are happy to have their populations on ridiculously low wages, or are happy for corporations to come in and use child labour, then we have to compete either perhaps by reducing our costs of manufacturing things through using the latest available technology, or by reducing our input costs through having the best infrastructure on the planet. And that means energy, transport, water infrastructure. and there's no real indication on this graph that any of those are the priority. So, we are spending, this is the key point. If you look at the debt interest figure there, £47 billion this year, we're spending more on the interest payments on the debt that the country has than on this fantastic infrastructure plan. The notional £37.5 billion isn't gut real spending anyway. It's mostly guarantees for more debt. So this infrastructure plan is no infrastructure plan at all. There's no investment from this government for the nation. And of course, if they would simply agree to bring back the Bradbury and follow that sort of policy of national credit, we wouldn't be needing to borrow money at interest for building a decent infrastructure in the first place.
Yeah, and I've noticed in the middle of that you've got a, what do we call it, a figure for war there, 42 point, where are we? Sorry, I've lost it.
42.1.
Yeah, 42.1. Yeah, I mean, I could have been a bit more polite and called that defence, but I haven't seen any sign of our armed forces being used for defensive purposes in recent years.
Well, we've clearly got a ministry for war. Well, interesting figures, Mike, and we don't see anything comparing with that detail on the good old BBC, of course.
Was that a Mike Robinson chart there? Just in case it pops up on one of the mainstreams.
Well, yes. I should have put a UK column logo on it, but yeah.
Okay, it'll probably appear on the BBC shortly because they're cheapskates. Well, it's getting pretty worrying what's happening inside the country. Some people are trying to blow the whistle, and we're seeing quite a clampdown. So where does this one take us?
This one takes us into Snowden leaks in The Guardian. Well, yesterday, Scotland Yard's assistant and our friend Cressida Dix told MPs that it appeared possible that some people may have committed offences in connection with Snowden's disclosures. Alan Reisberger is his name, I think you pronounce it that way. The Guardian's editor was yesterday testifying in front of a parliamentary committee when lawyers suggested The Guardian had aided terrorists by revealing activity conducted by US and British intelligence agencies. These same lawmakers implied The Guardian staff had violated Section 58A of the Terrorism Act, which I think we have here.
Yeah, can I just say, before we bring that up on screen, that it's important, I think, for people to realise that Cressida Dick, of course, is a common purpose leader. She's been absolutely steeped in this political charity. So she's got, I would suggest, a conflict of interest because as a senior police officer, she's intimately linked with an organisation which is driven to control the press. But here she is working on the other side of the coin. Yep. And the other thing I just wanted to say is it's getting very, very interesting that The Guardian on one hand is standing up and waving a flag saying how they're standing up for freedom of the press and revealing what's going on. And yet if you dig in behind The Guardian, of course, it was their parent organisation, the Scott Trust, that worked with Common Purpose and via the Media Standards Trust and hacked off to get the press shut down. So I wonder whether The Guardian's playing both sides of a pretty mean game here.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it.
This is the Terrorism Act.
Terrorism Act under Section 58A. And Brian, your eyes are better than mine. And 58A states, a person commits
an offence if he collects or makes a record of information of a kind likely to be useful to a person committing or preparing an act of terrorism. Okay. So you've got a group of friends and you're collecting information and somebody makes an allegation and my goodness, you've become a terrorist.
Exactly. Well, The Guardian are continuing to defend their legal and moral right to publish documents, saying government's activities should be left to the public and let out and shown to the public. But on the back of this,
here we go.
have King David and his disciples are looking to silence speakers of hate. Anyone who preaches messages of terror, their websites are to be blocked when the government feel they are extreme. Also, is the shutdown of charities that are suspected of being fronts for extreme groups. Well, I could think of a couple of charities they should be closing down there, but okay. So this new bill that they're looking to bring through is going to be known as TBOS, which is the Terror and Extremism Behaviour Order. Will work a little bit like ASBOs, barring people from associating with named individuals, entering sort of venues such as mosques and halls, and doing any preaching as well. The new bill was drawn up by an anti-extremism task force headed by King David, and includes his friend Theresa May, Cleggy Boy, and Baroness Wolsey. And apparently they're taking advice from police and intelligence chiefs as well.
So we'll bring the next one up, really, which sort of goes with this.
Yeah, it does go with it.
Extraordinary little story.
Yeah, a 19-year-old soldier has been released on bail after Royal Military Police arrested him under the Terrorism Act after a device reported to be a nail bomb was found at his home in Salford. Also found was potentially inflammatory literature. We don't know what that is. But interestingly, another 20-year-old apparently was arrested nearby on suspicion of possessing abusive images. Now, I actually came into you today and asked, can you get arrested on suspicion of abusive images?
Well, I think
and what are classed as abusive images?
I think it's heading this way, is that, if the police have got reasonable suspicion, if it's reasonable is used in the right way, they're obviously going to act. But if we just bring that slide back up on screen, this is really, I think, where we're starting the slippery slope, isn't it? So we've got here The Guardian, judges warning that people who are tweeting could put themselves at risk of contempt of court if you tweet about a current court case. So here's the screw tightening, and of course we've got the one we're just sort of talking about, the hate preachers to be silenced. It's a smiling fascism. These people smile while they're actually gently turning the screw. Mike?
Yeah, if you look at what's going on, particularly in the United States, because we see these kind of policies running in parallel on both sides of the Atlantic, and if we look at what's going on, particularly in the United States at the moment, where they are absolutely pushing the notion that conspiracy theorists are terrorists, and that conspiracy theorists are pushing hate speech, and they're really lumping the entire alternative media under this title of conspiracy theory. It's pretty clear where this is intended to go. And Brian, I said to you earlier that this looks like they've utterly failed at controlling the alternative media through Leveson, and it looks like they're taking another tack. Do you agree with that?
Well, I totally agree with that. And in a minute, we're just going to move subjects back to this horrific incident of the Italian lady and her baby being taken by Essex. And I think viewers and listeners are going to be stunned at what we've discovered overnight.
Can I just ask, there's a great artist who does a lot of stuff for the Truth Movement called David Dees, I believe, and he does a lot of political kind of pictures. I wonder if those kind of pictures are going to be classed under this act, and could he get arrested? Abusive images, because they are putting down the governments, they are showing that it done in art form of the wars that are going on and how illegal they are, and some are quite graphic. And I wonder if these kind of images are going to be classed.
I think they'd like to. Yeah. Mike, you're obviously poised there.
Well, he does do a lot of anti-Israeli policy type stuff. The way that, particularly highlighting the way that Israel treats Palestinians, and so I would say he's a very likely target for this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Well, we're just because we were kindly sent this morning, a sort of definition of smiling fascism. So we just bring this up on screen. Although the friendly fascists are subversive elements, they rarely see themselves as such. Some are merely out to make money under conditions of stagflation. Some are merely concerned with keeping or expanding their power and privileges. Many use the rhetoric of freedom, liberty, democracy, human values, or even human rights in pursuing their mutual interests through a new coalition of concentrated oligarchic power. People may be hurt whether through pollution, shortages, unemployment, inflation, or war. But that is not part of their central purpose. It is the product of invisible hands that are not theirs. So I'll leave you to think about that statement, but we think it's pretty close to the truth. We've got a mixture of things going on. Some of the people at the top of the pyramid do understand what they're doing, but many, of course, are just the useful idiots. But we are warning, and we'll continue to warn, where society in Britain is going. This was a picture we used yesterday. Obviously, Judge Mumby, who'd spoken out about the forcible sedation of an Italian mother and then the removal of her baby by caesarean, and she's never been reunited with that child 15 months on. So Judge Mumby, we believe, is one of an increasing number of judges who are beginning to wake up to the fact that some of their colleagues are running amok. But we'd like to take you deeper into the Essex scandal, we'll call it, and the Mail here picking up pretty forcibly by refuting statements that have come out of Essex County Council itself and other news sources, where they're saying, well, of course, this was all untrue, Essex did all the right things. So in this article, it's now emerging very clearly that the mother didn't give her approval, and her solicitors back in Italy are not only calling for her to be reunited with her child, they are describing what has taken place in Britain as being something straight out of the Nazi regime. We can only concur with that. But let's look at how Essex deals with it. I'm sorry this is so small, but I wanted to put it up. This is a press release that was sent to us yesterday, late in the day, as a result of our questions. Essentially, they are simply dismissing everything. I'll read a little bit of it. Dear Brian, in response to your email of the 2nd of December, please find below further details regarding this case. I'm sending this response on behalf of Councillor Anne Naylor. Undoubtedly, this is a very sad and difficult case for the mother, baby and her family. Essex County Council Social Services have been working for over a year with other partner agencies on this extremely complex and emotive case. As you will appreciate, social services across the country deal responsibly and professionally every day with thousands of extremely sensitive and difficult issues. Decisions are not taken lightly and are done in legal frameworks that in this case has included High Court decisions. In circumstances such as these, great care is taken not to reveal details which could in part or in whole lead to the identity of vulnerable people being revealed. And so it goes on. It's an absolute mishmash of legalese, basically saying how good Essex County Council is, how they've done nothing wrong, and how their overall drive is to protect the interests of children. Well, our experience over many years and from many other voluntary organisations across the country is that this is the language of a pack of lies from local authorities. So let's dig into Essex County Council. Well, we think it's important that we put up the key people so that we know who we're dealing with. This is Conservative David Finch, he's the leader of the council. Joanna Killian, Chief Executive. This man, very, very interesting, Dave Hill, and he's the Executive Director for People Commissioning.
What?
A lovely expression, isn't it? And here's the lady who actually sent the email, Helen Lincoln. And what a surprise, she's actually Director for Family Operations. So a person who is actually involved in the internal organisation that's been involved in this terrible case sends out an email saying how good they all are, including her department. But look at the wording. What is People Commissioning about? And family operations. It's a bit like military speak, but we're supposedly in a public sector organisation that's looking after people. So we thought we'd delve into this a bit more, but I will say before the slide goes, it is obvious across the country now that democratically elected leaders, councillors, are actually subservient to the government-appointed officers. So if you want to know who is really running Essex County Council, it's not David Finch and his little bunch of David Cameron's Conservatives. The woman who is running that council with a rod of iron, you can see it in her face, is a government appointee, Joanna Killian. Anyway, let's concentrate on Mr. Hill. This is taken straight off the website, so we're talking fact. He has got a background in schools, children and families, social worker, but we're interested to see down at the bottom that he's also been involved with the Tavistock Institute, an organisation very keen on understanding how our minds work. And we're well aware that the Tavistock Institute does a lot of work with children. But this caught our eye because it appears that Mr. Hill is also a trustee with a children's charity called the Who Cares Trust. So where does that take us? Well, it gets quite interesting because here they are. This is a very typical type of charity which is there to protect the well-being and interests and safety and development of children in care. So everything is rosy. What a wonderful organisation. And the question is, of course, who is behind it? Well, these are some of the patrons, and we were very interested to see John Snow is one of the top ones. Then we've got a journalist. But when we dug in further, we were absolutely fascinated to find Sir David Bell. Now, of course, Sir David Bell has been the driving force behind Common Purpose, but more recently he's hit the mainstream headlines due to his involvement with the Media Standards Trust and the campaign group Hacked Off, which have, of course, campaigned extremely heavily for government control of the British press and media. Why is this important? Well, let's come back to this gentleman, Lib Dem councillor Stephen Robinson. He'd emailed us yesterday to say...
Is he part of Essex, is he?
Yeah, he's one of Essex councillors. And he emailed us to say, well, basically, you don't know what you're talking about to do with this case. And he directed us to a link which is Lib Dem Voice, where he said if we went to that site, we would get a better overview as to what had actually taken place with this Italian lady and her baby. So here we are with Lib Dem Voice, and the article he was pointing us to was by this gentleman, Evan Harris. And Evan Harris was very forcibly attacking the Telegraph and other newspapers for being sensationalist in their reporting about the child. It couldn't possibly be true because, of course, we all know that authorities like Essex Social Services are upstanding, straight members of the community. But when we got to the bottom of the article, we were interested to see that actually this man is intimately connected with Hacked Off, which is, of course, Sir David Bell's pressure group from the Media Standards Trust. Well, Mr. Harris doesn't like the Mail. Perhaps it's for this reason. An article describing him as Dr. Death because of his, they are saying, his unnatural interest in embryo experiments, euthanasia and freer abortions. And we're more interested in from this point of view because it now turns out that this gentleman was a key part of the move to gag Britain's press. Here he is in the centre as part of the Hacked Off team that met behind closed doors in the early hours of the morning with Ed Miliband to cook up basically a pre-response from Leveson's inquiry as to how to shut the press up. So it's very interesting that this man, Mr. Harris, has been doing everything he can in the last few hours, 48 hours, to deflect press interest into what has taken place with Essex, the Italian lady, and this disgraceful taking of her child without her consent. So if we add the pieces in, here's David Hill. He's connected through to Sir David Bell. David Hill connected through to Sir David Bell, who's also connected to Mr. Harris. So if we join the pieces and we ask the question, why would this man attack the press for exposing the actions of Essex County Council?
Well, we know now, don't we?
I think there's something very, very dark going on. And if we've got some more researchers out there would like to start having a really good look at who Essex Council are connected with, I think we're going to get some very interesting questions. Mike?
Do you think it's right that David Hill, who works for a council and therefore is directly involved with putting children into care, should then have what seems to be a conflict of interest if he's involved in the care industry, because it is an industry. And okay, he's involved in a charitable sense in fairly big inverted commas, but nonetheless, is that not a bit of a conflict of interest?
Well, I think it's a total conflict of interest, but this is a pattern that we see right the way across the country. We are told that the public services looking after children are independent, but of course if we follow through, they're absolutely not, whether they're linked into Childline or Barnardo's or Cafcass, or now this increasing number, and we are talking significant numbers of so-called charities, which to us would appear to be profit-making organisations effectively based on children. And if you look into some of the larger organisations around the caring and safeguarding of children, you will see they're dealing in turnovers of up to £200 million. This is very, very nasty stuff. Let's have a look at what the social services are saying themselves. And we were kindly sent this article, which is very, very interesting. So it's from Community Care, and it says how some managers are directing social workers to breach the Mental Capacity Act. Now, unfortunately, I can't expand the text on the left-hand side, but essentially what they're saying is that while some social workers are using the Mental Capacity Act 2005 correctly in order to protect people who are mentally ill and need protection, some managers are bullying some of the social workers into using this act for reasons it wasn't meant for. And I'm going to say to viewers and listeners today that UK Column team have direct experience with a lady being sectioned in order to get her child taken away from her. Why was the mother sectioned? Because she was trying to protect the child from horrific sexual and sadistic abuse. She protested, she fought for her daughter's safety, and the net result is she was sectioned, and then the girl was given to the abuser, placed in the care of the abuser. Okay. And of course, the Mental Capacity Act was used to do this.
Brian, can I just ask, somebody in the chat room was asking, could you remind us again of the profits per child?
I'm afraid I can't remember off the top of my head what the profit is for a child, but if you take a single family court case, the minimum figure changing hands is £230,000. That's basic fees around the court case. That doesn't include fees for people like clinical psychologists or psychiatrists. It doesn't include fees if the child is actually being held in some sort of care facility. So you're talking over £250,000 for any case that goes near the family court. So of course, children are great news for profit. If you're a law firm, you can make millions living off these cases. And this is why really so many mums and dads tell us that it became increasingly obvious to them that the law firms were not helping them achieve justice and custody of their children. They were deliberately prolonging the court cases in order to maximise profit. So we are talking about a vast industry in UK around children. And of course, what we now know is that, supported by the British government, this industry is getting so vicious and confident that they are prepared to steal children from overseas nationals, Italian.
From the womb.
From the womb. Welcome to David Cameron's smiling fascism. I hope that's gone down on the record.
That's actually, Alex has brought it up in the chat room, but I heard it as well, that they're looking to give foster people in care to stay with the foster parents now until the age of 21, where they were going to
We're going to come on to that. We've already picked up on that. We'll just give you this bit to prove that we are doing our homework at the moment. And thank you very much for our supporter that sent this through to us this morning. So this is part of the Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists, Standards to Improve Women's Health. And this is setting out the law and ethics in relation to court-authorised obstetric intervention. This is the bit we really need, if we can call it up here. The competent adult has the right to refuse treatment and surgery without consent. The competent adult has the right to refuse treatment and surgery without consent is an assault in English law. The usual rules relating to consent apply to pregnant women in the same way as to other patients. The Department of Health defines capacity or competence to make decisions as the ability to comprehend and retain information material to the decision, especially as to the consequences of having or not having the intervention in question. Now, of course, it's this last one that Essex Council would appear to have been manipulating, because if they could deem that the woman, the lady concerned, was not competent, that she couldn't think for herself, this, of course, brought it into the Quarter Protection and gave Essex Social Services power to do as they liked. So at the moment, we've got two sides to the story. We're only interested in truth, but of course, we believe that something very nasty has taken place. And of course, Essex is not only denying it, it's now being reported that they're trying to get some form of injunction against the wider media. Well, this is the article you were mentioning, okay. Louise. Yeah. We picked it up. Very, very interesting that while this furore is going on, we've now got a call to increase the age at which children can stay with a foster parent. And the reason we're interested in this is we know of several cases where children who were clearly unlawfully taken from their parents are essentially being held captive within a foster parent situation, where the local authorities are doing everything they can to try and break the bond between teenagers and their parents, because those very young teenagers have already said the moment they're 18, they're going to come after the councils in legal action. So this would appear to be deliberate. And we'll ram this home because kindly one of our viewers in Germany sent us a link to this page. The lady concerned translated a lot of it for us. I'm going to leave it on screen, but I'll simply say that the meat of this is here are people in Germany warning that their German youth teams have killed up to 150 children per year through serious abuse and indeed murder and children disappearing. And in Germany, people are saying this is how it was when this system started under the Nazi Party. So I'm going to leave viewers and listeners to decide how serious this is themselves. But if you freeze that page, of course, you can read what the text was. Well, it's not a dream, really, but it is about money. Yeah, so this is an article that appeared in Common Dreams last week. Just wanted to go through it. This is more profiteering off the backs of the devastation of the housing market in the United States. And of course, it will eventually come here, I'm quite certain. So this is a new securitization bubble. A company called Blackstone, an American-based multinational private equity, investment banking, alternative asset management, financial services corporation, based in New York, of course. Blackstone, founded in 1985 as a mergers and acquisitions boutique. Sounds like clothes shopping, I don't know, but set up by Peter Peterson and Stephen Schwartzman, who had previously worked together at Lehman Brothers Kuhn Lieb, Inc. So here is Peter Schwartzman. Looks very much like Sir Humphrey Appleby, I think. I suspect he probably has even fewer scruples. But anyway, Blackstone, it is a parasite. They are, as I said, a private equity business specializing in leveraged buyouts. And in this past October, they began issuing a new type of bond. And this bond is backed not by mortgages, as we're familiar with, but by rents. So popular, in fact, was this new scam that they had to actually reduce the yield on these bonds. It was so oversubscribed. And so they're currently, unsurprisingly, the yields on offer are linked to LIBOR, which I'm sure is not manipulated in any way anymore. But anyway,
They're offering 1.2% above LIBOR for bonds, which are backed by what they consider to be low-risk rentals, 4% above LIBOR for what might be described as subprime rentals. And just as an aside, I noticed this just before we came in that 8 banks, including RBS, have now been fined a paltry £1.7 billion by the EU for rigging LIBOR and Euribor. And that's pretty pathetic. But anyway, getting back to this, already other vultures are jumping on this bandwagon. And as the Common Dreams article points out, the bond will only work in the long term if Blackstone is a good landlord, and that's not very likely to be the case, is it? So far, it certainly isn't. People are complaining about the size and quality of the cockroaches running around their properties. And what we're looking at here is a 21st century Victorian slum. Back in the Victorian times, the housing stock was owned by the church and peers of the realm. Today, it's by equally unscrupulous hedge fund managers happy to see people in the worst of conditions, so long as they can make a fast buck. So let's just have a quick look at how this works. So the financial system said, trust us, and they deliberately missold mortgages to people who couldn't afford them. They then securitized those mortgages on the markets, and that kind of went on for a while until, of course, it crashed, meaning that people ended up having their homes repossessed. Along come the vultures, and they say, yes, this is brilliant, and they take those repossessed homes for a song from the banks and start getting into the rental market. And of course, they can't leave it there, because what they have to do then is they go back to the markets and and securitize those rentals. The money that they raise from that securitization goes back and allows them to buy more repossessed homes. And of course, what we're going to see in the not too distant future is that interest rates are going to rise, meaning that more people are going to get themselves into mortgage-related troubles. More houses are going to come onto the markets as repossessed properties, and these vultures are just going to start scooping them up. Well, what can we say? Where's it going to end? In tears, perhaps? I'm sorry, I blew that one.
Certainly going to end in transformation, but
yeah. Don't worry about it. Go on ahead, Brian.
Okay, let me just move us on through this then a second. Sorry. No, it's okay. I'm just going to say I do still watch some of the mainstream media to see what they do and don't say, and it's just obvious, isn't it, that they are not covering any proper detail about what goes on in the financial world. Although I have been told that Robert Peston has been through some sort of speech course. So he's now started to speak roughly like a human being instead of some sort of semi-robot. But I don't know whether you can confirm that at all, Mike.
Well, I think he's been through his common purpose training, and he's perhaps coming out the other side fully reframed and now able to operate like in terms of his speech like a normal human being again. But of course, his mind is still thinking along common purpose route. Yeah.
Well, a couple of things to finish on. We just wanted to bring you back to Oxford and Cherwell Valley College because, of course, there's been absolutely no action by Thames Valley Police or Oxfordshire Safeguarding to bring those who were abusing physically and sexually children at the college over many years, to bring those people to book. There's still a wall of silence. But the college is going from strength to strength because they're now transforming themselves. So if you're going to have a look at the college, the transformation is complete. Our purpose, our beliefs, our people. This is all very interesting language. But the hard fact is that Oxfordshire County Council and Oxford and Cherwell Valley College are refusing to answer subject access requests relating to serious sexual and physical assaults. So we're going to watch that with interest.
God, these pictures and that website, it's all getting your head kind of thing, isn't it?
It's all to do with transformation. This is actually showing that the people at the top of the college are fully into the move to transform the world. So these people have been gently reframed, or maybe not so gently, but of course the head of the college herself is common purpose. So what you're looking at is raw common purpose. I'm going to end on something pretty unpleasant, so I'm going to warn you now, but we'll show it for what it is. Interesting headlines here in the paper. A man having sex with a goat and a naked woman straddling a statue, erotic Roman frescoes get a modern makeover. Now this is from the Mail. What I'm interested here is the language. So you've heard that headline. Now look at how they describe it, saucy artworks. So according to the Mail, this is a little bit of fun, a little bit of titillation. Let's have a look at what they're actually looking at. Well, we are now seeing the Daily Mail promoting bestiality. And of course, the UK column has been saying for many years that the government's moved towards lowering the age of consent, and the fact that the government is running and permitting to run many of the high-level paedophile rings, the next step would be to move towards bestiality. And in the bottom, we've got a Mirror article. I don't know whether that will come up a bit larger. This is the key bit. It's a blatant attack on our minds, values and common sense. The Daily Mail knows what it's doing here. If we just look at this other article, this is from the Mirror. It's talking about artwork. So a woman is putting a ball of wool up her vagina to knit with it for a month, and we're being presented with this as if it is something to do with art. Well, it is art, it's creative art, and this is designed to attack our minds, values and common sense, and particularly, of course, for children. So if you want to know what our mainstream press are up to, they are all working to actually attack us. If we're aware of how these attacks are being conducted, we can protect ourselves and, of course, protect our children. Now, I notice on the forums that there's quite a bit of discussion about what can be done to stop this. And we will be covering in the coming weeks actions which are having great success across Britain to expose what's happening and put a stop to it. And one of the key areas, of course, is the courts. And we can tell you that much progress has been made with bringing common law back into the courts. And we're fully aware now that an increasing number of judges are beginning to pay attention to the antics of some of their colleagues. And we know that an increasing number of magistrates are also now beginning to ask the right questions about what is actually going wrong within the court and judicial system. So if we want to put a stop to this, we can't alienate everybody. Who's going to fix the police? The police are. Who's going to fix the courts? The judges are. Our weapon is to get the truth in there. So I won't ask if you've enjoyed today's programme because it's been pretty hard-hitting, but if it makes sense to you, please encourage as many people as possible to watch what we've been talking about.
Exactly.
And I'm going to end by saying thank you very much to our new Australian supporters. It's really great to know that we've reached that far, and it's great for us when we get those little emails saying thank you for what you do. Keep going. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.